Okay, to put in the spot elevations, what we're going to do, students, on the final grading plan, so you can kind of see, is we're going to put in these little boxes, and the little boxes will have elevations to them. Okay. Now, in some cases, some of the elevations just say PV with a number. Some of them have a TC and a PV and so on and so forth. And we have different meanings of different things. So we have the ones that say TC for top of curb, GT for gutter, CN for concrete, PV for pavement, top of header curb, grate, and invert. So we have different things in here, okay? Now on the sketch, the engineer only gave us one spot elevation. And those spot elevations, they pretty much coded it pretty good where they're telling us pavement elevations in here. So it looks like they're all pavement. And in some cases, they're giving us GT for gutter, okay? So this is all that you really have to go by as far as what the engineer gave us, except that in our case, some of us do need to make sure that we put in the topper curb and gutter if we have that. And we do have that in certain cases. I'm not going to zoom in because then you'll be able to see the answers and you'll just simply pause the video and copy. But we have in some cases that are TC, GT. So you will have to figure out where you need a TC and GT or just a PV or, whatever the case may be. So we'll have different instances. But before we get too far, we need to understand what is these different, we're talking about different types of curb. We're talking about different types of curb. So we have in some cases, like if we go over here to note number 9, note number 9 is talking about a header curb. Okay. And you know what I think I'm going to do is I'll probably on the class share, I'm going to put the details so you can kind of see what these look like. Okay. But if I can show you a picture of header curb, or I guess I'll start with standard curb. Okay. So what is standard curb whenever we see it? Because you're going to see that labeled in different instances. Standard curb is this one. Okay. So this is the one that we talked about yesterday, where we're doing that for our topographical drafting. So we're talking about standard curb, and in some cases, we talk about an elevation that's called the top of curb elevation, which is an elevation at the top of the curb. Okay. And then in some cases, we're going to need a pavement elevation, which is going to be at this point right in here. So what's the difference between the two? Don't forget, it's a difference of 0.50 feet. Don't forget, we work with decimal feet. So as far as our elevations, we're going to be working with a difference of 0.5, depending on what elevation we have, either pavement or top of curb. And if I'm not mistaken, I think the engineer in his sketch gave us mostly GTs or PVs. Okay, so GT and PV. PV is pavement. What is pavement? I just kind of showed you a little while ago. It's this one right in here. That would be the pavement elevation along this edge. Okay. Now, in some cases, they tell us GT. So what is GT? GT has to do with what's called um, curb and gutter. Okay, curb and gutter. So what is curb and gutter? As far as curb and gutter, this is curb, but whenever they add that little, whenever they add this little piece of concrete towards the front, this is what's called a gutter. And I'm sure you've seen the difference between the two. Okay. So this whole area here, this is called a gutter, okay? But it's really the same elevation as pavement. So any elevation that we have here, that could be understood as GT for gutter or PV for pavement. It's the same elevation because it's the same elevation of the pavement. This doesn't change, whether it's standard curb or curb and gutter, this is always going to be TC for top of curb, okay? So top of curb is going to be this elevation here. GT or pavement is going to be the pavement elevation down at this level. What's the difference between the two? 0.50, 6 inches. 0.50 difference, okay? So that's the difference between the two. So remember, in this class, we're not designing. You guys aren't designing. You're simply following a sketch that was done by an engineer. So in this case, the engineer just gave us pavement elevations. We, as a technician, need to figure out, okay, do we have curb? And if like this one, this is number 8 right in here. We have 8 on this 8, the 8 keynote. We saw that is curb and gutter. So then on that 8 keynotes, I need to put in not only a GT elevation, I need to put in a TC elevation. So I'm going to start with this one right in here in the corner where we have this 8537 GT, but then I'll have to put in my own elevation to be a top of curve because the engineer didn't do that. They're expecting me to figure out that I need to put in the top of curve elevation. Okay. So how are we going to do that on our grading plan? On our grading plan, I'm going to put this spot shot block on our class share folder. As a matter of fact, let me go ahead and do that right now. I'm going to save it as and put it under the class share. Civil drafting. Okay. And I'm going to save it there as called as a spot shot. Okay. So that's the one we're going to be using. So what we're going to do here, I'm going to turn off the image. I don't really need to see the image for now. I'm just going to turn off the show underlay. And on this corner right here is where I'm going to put that spot elevation. So I'm just going to simply insert that spot elevation. I'm going to click I for insert. I need to go over to the libraries tab, just like how we got the X sheet. Click in here, and then go and insert the spot shot. Hit open. It's going to take us a few seconds to load it. Once it loads, I'll be able to right-click on it and insert it, or you can drag and drop it, okay? So in this case, I'm just going to do a little bit different. I'm going to click insert, and then I'm going to go ahead and place it right here. So it's following me along, and I'm going to place it, okay? Now, because this spot shot is used for different projects, it's scaled at a 1-to-1, meaning it's really small because we have to apply our scale factor, okay? We have to apply our scale factor. So don't forget that the scale factor that we use on the title block is 1 to 10. So if I select it here, it's a 1 to 10, okay? On model space, you can kind of see that the scale is actually 1 to 40. So it doesn't affect it much, but I do like to change it in model space also to match 1 to 10, okay? And then I'm going to regenerate my screen. But I can also cover the fact of fixing our line weights, our line types, because if you see this line type right in here before I get to the spot shot, I'm going to click over to layout. Notice that one shows up correctly, okay? Yet over here in model space, it doesn't. And it's a setting. I'm not sure why it's turned off by default, but it's called MSLT scale. MSLT scale, okay? So that MSLT scale, we actually need to change it from a default 0 over to a 1. Enter. And once you do that in model space, you're going to regenerate your screen, and then you'll be able to see all your line types correctly in model space because it shows up actually correctly in paper space already, okay? So I don't know why we have to adjust that setting on our own, but once you do it once on the drawing, you won't have to worry about that anymore, okay? So that addresses our issue with line types. Let's go back to our spot shot. The spot shot is 1-to-1, and obviously if I place it, it's going to be really, really small. You can see on the detailed grading plan, it really isn't that small. It's text that we can actually read. So we need to scale it, and we need to scale it by our scale factor. What's nice about civil engineering, the scale factor is pretty easy because if it's a 1 to 10, the scale factor is simply 10. Very, very easy, okay? So then that spot shot, what I need to do is I need to scale the spot shot, scale it, pick a point pretty much anywhere that I want to, and I'm going to scale it 10 times. That way, it puts it to the right scale so that I'm able to read the text correctly. Plus, the text is actually a 0.08 text height, kind of like how we did in our plats, except that it's now 0.08 times 10. So this text is actually going to be taller. So I'm going to go ahead and explode the block, okay? And then that's our spot elevation that we can then start editing text, okay? One thing we do need to address is the little dot got a little small. So, and it was pretty big right now, but once I exploded it, it got small. The reason for that is because it's still at a 1-to-1. So we're just going to go to our properties, and we're going to apply a kind of like the scale factor, and we're just going to adjust the arrow size from a 0.06 you do the math of 0.06 times 10, okay? So we're basically going to set it at a 0.6 size. So this one, you just have to manually change it to 0.6 so that the little dot comes out to the right size, okay? What's neat about it is that once you do it once, you can just copy this little block that was adjusted and place it in all the different locations that you're going to need it. So I'm just going to copy it and put it over here to the right. That way I can just copy it from here. It's already been scaled correctly. The little dot's been adjusted, and then we'll just place it wherever we need it, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and place this spot shot close to the area that I need it, right in here. I'm going to grab this little dot here and put it to the corner at that endpoint right there. Okay. So that spot elevation is a spot elevation that the engineers requested, which is this one right there. And it says 8537 GT. 8537 GT. So what I need to do is my GT, he's pretty much telling me what it is. 8537 is my GT. Okay. But this is curb and gutter, as a matter of fact. How do I know that? Because if I look at the sketch, it says all of this double line here is an 8. The 8, according to the keynote, is curb and gutter, or in some cases, it's standard curb, or in some cases, it's header curb. Okay, so you just kind of look at what you need. In this case, it's giving us a gutter, so we do need the topper curb elevation. So on that one, what I'll have to do is I myself will have to do the math and figure out the top of curb. Okay, I'll have to figure out the top of curb. Now, how do you do the math? You might end up doing this on your mind, but it's actually pretty easy. But if you need a calculator, it's 8537. Remember, that's a pavement elevation. So I'm going to add the 6 inches, 0.5. So my top of curb will be 8587. Okay. You might be able to do that in your mind. And, because I've been doing this for a long time, I can pretty much do those on my mind too. So the top of curb, I need to go in there myself and figure out that that needs to be a top of curb of 8587 on that point right there. Okay. Is that what we have here? That's exactly correct. So on that corner, just like on the final grading plan, we have a top of curb 8587 and a gutter of 8537. So you'll have to do that in all these different locations. In some cases, we might have to just do a pavement shot like this one. So I'll give you the answer to that one, but that one's 8587 here, 8897 pavement. So it just depends. It just depends. So you're going to have to kind of interpret that information yourself to figure out whether it's a standard curb and gutter. And not that you have to figure it out, it's on the keynotes. Is it a standard curb and gutter, or is it just standard curb with no gutter? Or the other type of curb that exists in the project is what's called header curb. So we do have in some cases an area that we have header curb where the topper curb and the gutter elevation are actually the same elevation. We use header curb in some cases to separate pavement from landscape areas, or in this case, like a gravel driveway. So this one is actually flat. So there is no 6-inch difference. It's just simply flat from one side to the other. So whenever we have that, you might have a topper curb and gutter at the same elevation. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, that is actually going to happen along this edge right in here. I think we have in here somewhere, we have a curb 9. On curb 9, we have new header curb. New header curb on curb 9 over here. So we have a 83 pavement. That curb 9 goes all the way around here. So all of this is actually header curb all the way around the corner. So then how do we label it here? Okay. On that one, we actually labeled the header curb and the pavement elevation as the same, because that is the actual elevation of both the header curb and the pavement. So that one happens to be the same. Okay. So that's what you're going to have to do. And we need all these spot elevations. Which ones? Pretty much whatever is on the sketch. Where we have a number is we need a spot elevation here. We need one here. We need one here. We need one here. Except you're going to have to figure out whether we need a topper curb, gutter, or as the concrete elevation, or whatever the case may be. Okay. It's all going to be on your sketch. And that needs to be done for this next submittal for this project.